welcome to Virtual CB1A. This is Miss Rena, and today we are going to continue our review on derivatives. This time we are going to talk about the derivative of trigonometric functions. So for the derivative of trigonometric functions, I included here a table of derivatives. Let's start with the function sine x. So the derivative of sine x is cosine x. The derivative of cosine x is negative sine x. The derivative of tangent x is 1 over cosine squared x, which is equal to secant squared x. If you will recall from trigonometric identities during your trigonometry course, these two are equal. Now let's have cotangent x. For cotangent x, the derivative is 1 over negative sine squared x, which is equal to the negative cosecant squared x. For secant x, it is equal to tangent x times secant x. So that is a product. And finally, for cosecant x, we have negative cotangent x cosecant x. Okay? So now, we are going to have an example. For our example, we have the function f of x is equal to cosine x sine x. If you will take notice, this is a product. So in order for us to get the derivative of this function, we are going to use our knowledge of the product rule. If you still remember, the product rule is given by this formula. So to get the derivative of the product, I will write it right here. So the product rule states that, oops, wait lang, nag-open yung Spotify ko. Okay, so for the product rule, f of x times g of x, if you are asked to find the derivative of this function, all you have to do is to multiply the derivative of the first function by the second function and add it with the first function times the derivative of your second function. Alright, so from here, let's set cosine x as our first function and sine x as our second function. So using our table of derivatives for the trigonometric functions, the derivative of cosine x here is negative sine x. So let's replace the first function by negative sine x. Or you can skip the grouping symbols. Pwedeng sine x na lang siya. And multiply it by the second function. Our second function is sine x. And after that, let's go to the second term. It is the product of the first function, which is cosine x, multiplied by the second function's derivative. The derivative of the second function is, okay, let's look at the table again. The derivative of sine x is cosine x. So multiply it by cosine x. And then let's perform multiplication. So negative times positive, it will give you, of course, positive. Okay, so negative sine x times positive sine x is negative sine squared x. While for this other one, we have cosine x times cosine x is equal to cosine squared x. Alright. Now, let's arrange our terms. So, instead of writing it this way, let's start our function with the negative or with the positive function, cosine squared x. And then, followed by sine squared x. So, these two will both be considered correct since we only interchange the two terms to make it more uniform. So we started our final answer with the positive term, which is cosine squared x. But if you want to settle with negative sine squared x plus cosine squared x, it will still be okay. Now let us evaluate this function. What if... Okay, now let us evaluate another function. Let me just change sheets so we can have more space. Our next function is f of x is equal to x cotangent x. So we have the first function. Lagyan natin ng ganito para hindi kayo masyadong nalilito. The first function is x and the second function is cotangent x. Since this is, again, a product of two functions, we will still use the product rule. For the product rule, again, it is given by the first derivative of the function is the product of f prime of x times g of x plus f of x times g prime of x. Okay, now let's evaluate the derivative of this given function here, x cotangent x, using the product rule. We have f prime of x is equal to the derivative of the first function. The first function, we have x, and we know that the derivative of an identity function x is always 1 times g of x. So the second function, we have cotangent x plus the first function x multiplied by the derivative of the second function. And we are going to refer to our table of trigonometric function derivatives to see the derivative of cotangent x. According to our table, that is negative cosecant squared x. Now let's simplify. 1 times cotangent x is of course cotangent x. While for the second term, since we have here a product, this is going to be negative x cosecant squared x. So that's it. This is now our derivative for the function x cotangent x.